All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Oregon School District Board of Education meeting. We are here at the Oregon School District Innovation Center at the high school, July 13th, 2026 at 6:30, and I'm calling this meeting to order. Ms. Jonan, could you please do the roll call for us?
Dr. Bush.
Here.
Ms. Garrison. Mr. Hensel.
Here.
Mr. Ledbetter. Dr. Lakuta. Here. Ms. Wright. Here. Mr. Pankratz.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Board has a quorum of 5 tonight. Heather and Matt did both let me know that they had work employment engagements tonight and unable to attend. So we will proceed with the 5 of us. Tonight we have an agenda, a very packed agenda. So we have we'll be considering 2026, 2027 food service prices, the 2026-27 academic standards. We have a policy coming before us tonight. That's policy 770, staff and student communications. We will be considering our 25-26 budget adjustments as we've just completed that fiscal year. And then we have consideration of a resolution to educate taxpayers about the amount used to fund private and charter schools on the tax bill. And we have the consideration of using remaining 25-26 community ed funds to explore value engineering the splash pad. And then we have our typical information items. We do have a closed session posted here as well, which we will convene to after our regular meeting. That is two items. Number one, discussion regarding negotiating the SRO agreement for the 26-27 school year. That's pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.851E. And number two is to consider performance evaluation regarding district administrator pursuant to Wisconsin Statutes 19.851C. With that, I will take a motion to approve the agenda as posted. Motion by Nathan, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mary. Dr. Lakuta, Gina, could you call the roll on that agenda approval, please?
Dr. Bush.
Yes.
Mr. Hensel.
Yes.
Dr. Lakuta.
Yes.
Ms. Wright.
Yes.
Mr. Pankratz.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. We have an approved agenda. We'll move right along here. We'll start with our consent calendar. So you have the consent calendar in front of you. Does anyone have anything they'd like to remove from the consent calendar? We'll start with that. If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion by Leslie. Is there a second?
I'll second.
A second by Dr. Bush. Any discussion? I would like to take this opportunity to recognize our generous community members who've donated this month to the Oregon School District. So Pure Integrity Homes has donated $1,000 for a scholarship. Oregon Masonic Lodge, $1,000 donation for their scholarship. The Wisconsin Masonic Foundation, another $1,000 for the Masonic Lodge scholarship. The American Red Cross has donated $1,600 for the High School Biomedical Scholarship Award. The Aldo Leopold Nature Center donated $300 to cover the cost of transportation for Prairie View second grade field trip. And then we have 41 individual donations for food service balances. And then we have Gary Howards, who's donated a camera tripod, a value of $75 for the OHS Panther Press. St. John's Lutheran Church, $50 to cover the cost of summer school lunch balances. The Oregon Choral Boosters, $111 for the Netherwood Knoll Music Department. Several donations here, all for the OHS Robotics Club. Douglas and Carolyn Johnson, $500. John Keel, $500. Amy Nitschke, $50. Jesse and Catherine Gray, $500. Eric and Misty Lawrence, $150. Jennifer Sutter, $100. Bhavin Patel, $800. And then we have a donation from the Oregon Rotary Club for $600 for the OMS Green Team for the Lerner Park 25 and Lerner Park 26. So, as always, we greatly appreciate all of those many generous donations. I wish I would have totaled up the amounts this month. It's a sizable number. So thank you for that. And yes, a lively crowd here tonight in the Innovation Center. With that, I will, we've got a motion and a second, so Gina, please call the roll to approve the consent calendar.
Ms. Wright?
Yes.
Dr. Bush?
Yes.
Mr. Hensel? Yes. Dr. Lakuta?
I will abstain from the June 8th meeting minutes, but approve everything else.
And Mr. Pankratz?
Yes. So that's a 5-0 vote. Motion carries. We do now have an approved consent calendar. Moving right along, we're going to go to our information items. So I welcome Dr. Anderson to her very first board meeting, serving as our new superintendent. And turn it over to you, Dr. Anderson.
All right, well, tonight we have two very exciting student highlights to share with you. The first, of course, is graduation. We had a huge class, 354 graduates walk across the stage. And while it is certainly a very special and memorable event, more importantly, it's really a powerful showcase of our mission, our 5 values, and of course, a portrait of a graduate, and all the educators and families and community members who helped to make that day possible. To the class of 2026, you are ready for the next chapter, and we are going to be cheering you on from Oregon, and we cannot wait to see the impact that you are going to have on the world. Our second was just from a week ago. We had a very special event hosted at the high school from our history students to commemorate the 250th birthday. This event took place actually on the 4th of July. It included museum-style displays, student readings of famous American speeches, and an opportunity to interact with the Declaration of Independence. We are going to play a quick video because the local news station came and did a story on this event.
Have you asked yourself why we celebrate? Today, Oregon High School students reflected on the many great stories that make up our history. Students read famous speeches throughout different centuries in America, giving them an opportunity to reflect on the history that's made up our nation.
I tell kids all the time, I want them to learn history. I want them to walk out of the classroom with a better foundation of American history. But I also want them to learn how to be good people and good citizens. So an event like this is a reminder that the founders thought about that a lot.
Wigman said that the event immerses the students in the early history of America while also challenging what it's meant across time, including the present.
We would like to give a special thanks to our U.S. history teachers and our students who made this event possible on the 4th of July in the middle of summer, because they were so passionate about that learning. It was really awesome. We are also grateful. This event also showcased one of our values of community partnerships. The Oregon Area Historical Society and the Oregon Chamber also helped to support this event. That is it for student highlights tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. All right, next up we have our public comment. So we do have a full house here, so I do expect we'll probably have some guests. We have one person signed up, but before we start public comment, I'm going to read our policy just so that everyone in the room understands our public comment policy. So District Policy 180.05 provides an opportunity for the public to address the board. We value the public comment period and feedback from our stakeholders. To comply with the open meetings law and to ensure consistency, public comment will have the following parameters. Public comment is scheduled for 15 minutes. Speakers will have 3 minutes in which to make their comments. That's 3 minutes each. And we will signal the speaker when their time is up. That's Ms. Jonan there with the red card. And the board will not comment after each speaker, but will reserve discussion to any items that are on the agenda. Speakers are welcome to stay for the entire meeting. Next steps following public comment may include referral to the appropriate administrator for follow-up with the speaker or placement of the matter on a future board agenda. So we have actually several people registered. to speak, and I will just call your name. You can step up to the mic, and you have 3 minutes each. So we'll start with Mr. Randy Way.
Okay, thank you. So some time ago, my daughter, Amelia, who's 13, she'll be an 8th grader this fall at Oregon Middle School, made a donation to the Splash Pad project, and I believe it was the Optimist, asked her to say a few words about why that was important to her. She is at track practice right outside right now, so she wrote me a script and asked me to convey this to the board. It says, my daughter gave some of her own money to fund the Splash Pad. She loves playing in the water and heard that a splash pad was being built just a few blocks away from her house, and she was thrilled. She gave her money to the splash pad because not only could she enjoy it, but the community could as well. She would have absolutely loved it, and I can't imagine how much other little kids like her could enjoy the splash pad. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Way. Next up, we have Jim Jefferson. Please come up to the mic and just start by sharing your address, please.
Good evening. My name's Jim Jefferson, and my wife and I live in Brooklyn at 123 4th Street. And Ann and I have been living in Oregon School District for approximately 4 years, and I'd like to thank Mr. Pankratz and the Visionary Committee for their consideration to use the Fund 80 funds to make the Splash Pad a reality. After becoming Optimist Club members, my wife and I became aware of the great efforts of the Optimist Club and the community, raising over $500,000, believing that these funds would be contributed toward the construction of the Splash Pad. The main reason for moving to Wisconsin was to be close to family, and I feel certain our grandsons, who are aged 8 and 12 at the moment, would definitely benefit from the completion of the Splash Pad. We believe the Splash Pad would be a great asset which can be enjoyed by the entire community regardless of age or background. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Margaret Straub.
Margaret Straub, 292 Glenway Road, Brooklyn, Town of Oregon. In 2015, a group of dedicated community members came together with a simple but powerful idea. Oregon deserved a splash pad. They saw a real need for families who didn't have access to free, safe water play on hot summer days just like we're experiencing this week. A splash pad isn't just a place to cool off. It is a place where families connect, neighbors meet, and community grows. The group also recognized that a splash pad could help introduce more families to everything Oregon has to offer, from our exceptional school district to our vibrant local businesses. More activity in our community means more people visiting, exploring, and supporting the places that make Oregon special. And from the beginning, the group was committed to doing this responsibly, advocating for a recirculating splash pad and a location families could easily walk or bike to. After thoughtful research and discussion, the group identified the ideal location, a small plot of land near the Oregon Pool, perfectly suited for a water playground that would serve all Oregon District residents. They approached the Oregon School District Administration and School Board to request approval to begin development and fundraising to start turning this vision into reality. Over the past 11 years, the community has rallied behind this effort. Through fundraising and grants, nearly $850,000 has been raised. Today, we are closer to construction than ever before. Thanks to the leadership of Troy Pankratz, a clear path forward now exists to finally bring this long-held dream to life. As you prepare to vote tonight on the future of the Oregon Splash Pad, I ask that you reflect on the mission of the Oregon School District, to educate all students by helping them acquire the skills, knowledge, and attitudes needed to achieve their individual potential, to contribute to a changing society, and to be receptive to learning as a lifelong process. This education process does not just occur in Fitchburg, Oregon, Brooklyn, or any of the other communities the district supports, but rather all students within the district. Nor does education just occur from 4K through 12th grade, but rather it begins at birth, continues throughout life, and can happen anywhere, even on the water-soaked cement of a splash pad on a hot summer day. Thank you.
Thank you. Sherry Pollock.
Good evening. My name is Sherry Pollock, and I live in the Oregon School District. I am here to thank President Pankratz and the Visioning Committee for their recent work and commitment to complete the Oregon Community Splash Pad. I was so excited to hear that the Visioning Committee agreed to use the district's community education and recreation funds, also known as Fund 80, to bring the splash pad to fruition. In addition to being an OSD resident, I am a member of the Oregon Brooklyn Optimist Club since 2021. When I joined the Optimists, I became involved in the Splash Pad Project and the Splash Pad Fundraising Committee. Among the most impactful fundraising experiences to me were two community-based campaigns. One, the $30 campaign in the fall of 2022, generated nearly $10,000 from 136 people over the course of 6 weeks. The 2024 Final Push campaign in December of 24 featured daily videos of community stakeholders encouraging support and generated over $100,000 in 30 days, all from community members. Through these efforts and many others since 2017, over $500,000 has been raised from more than 450 people, local daycare providers, other locally owned small businesses, and local grants. In addition, we were awarded a $321,000 grant from the Wisconsin DNR. I know some members don't support building the splash pad, or at least using community education and recreation funds to make it a reality. That is really unfortunate, and hopefully those of you who felt that way have reconsidered, because the community splash pad not only supports an active, engaged, and civilized society, it also directly supports the mission of the Oregon School District, helping students acquire the skills, knowledge, and attitudes needed to achieve their individual potential. Splash pads bring together people of all ages and backgrounds without economic barriers and are inclusive of all physical and developmental abilities. This inclusivity doesn't just benefit participants, it creates a stronger, more connected community where everyone can enjoy outdoor recreation together. According to a 22 report by the American Physical Therapy Association, communities with accessible splash pads see a 22% increase in participation from individuals with disabilities compared to traditional pool facilities. And according to a 2019 study published in the BMC Public Health Journal, children who engage in regular water play demonstrate 15% greater gross motor skill development than peers who don't. The study's authors noted that splash pads, with their combination of water resistance and textured surfaces, provide an ideal environment for this development. Finally, community splash pads help kids and adults learn to socialize and resolve conflicts, take turns, and share. Again, I want to thank the board for committing today to make the splash pad come to be. Children and adults from all over the district will be able to enjoy this for many years to come, and I encourage you to act tonight to make the splash pad a reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Next up, Sue Haberman.
Hi there, my name is Sue Haberman. I live at 140 Cedar Drive, Oregon, and I've been a resident since 1980. And I would like to thank Mr. Pankratz and the Visioning Committee for their recent work and commitment to complete the Oregon Community Splash Pad. As a member of the Optimist, I have donated to the splash pad and would like to thank the board for committing today to make the splash pad come to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Carrie Spildy, you are next. Tim LeBrun, you're on deck, and then it's Amanda Peterson.
Good evening. My name is Carrie Spildy. My husband Troy and I have lived in the Oregon, Brooklyn community our entire lives. Forgot to say, I'm at 126 4th Street in Brooklyn. Sorry about that. We are both proud graduates of OHS, and so are our children. I am also a proud member of the Oregon Brooklyn Optimist Club. I would like to thank Mr. Pankratz and the Visioning Committee for their dedication and commitment to helping bring the Oregon Community Splash Pad to completion. When I learned that the committee had agreed to utilize the district's Community Education and Recreation Funds, Fund 80, to help make this project a reality, I was thrilled. As a member of this community, I have personally donated to the project, secured donations through my employer, and worked along fellow Optimist Club members to raise funds through numerous community events. Watching our community come together to support this project has truly been inspiring. Because of the generosity of more than 450 donors from Oregon and beyond, over $500,000 has been raised. That level of support speaks volumes about how much this community values opportunities for families and children. Having grown up in Oregon, I have wonderful memories of spending time at the outdoor pool, which I'm sure some of you can remember. I'm grateful that I was raised in a community that invested in its youth, and I'm excited that today's children will have the opportunity to create memories of their own at a safe, inclusive facility that welcomes individuals of all abilities and developmental needs. The Oregon Splash Pad will be an incredible asset to our community and district. Families will travel here to enjoy it, and its innovative features, including recirculating water and solar panel, will make this project a project that we can all be proud of for years to come. Thank you for all that you do for our students, families, and community. Thank you for helping make the Oregon Community Splash Pad a reality, a place where lifelong memories can be made. And as kids around here say, #PantherPride. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Tim LeBrun. Maybe you'd feel more comfortable in a seat
Yes,
up here, Tim?
This is a weird place for me to be. I think my colleagues from the Optimist Club have said everything better than I could possibly say it. My name is Tim LeBrun. I live at 933 County Road MM, just south of the middle school. I have been in Oregon for 35 years, and I have been an optimist with a small o my entire life, and an optimist with a big O for 37 years. I thought I would just simply read from the school district's own website about the splash pad, and I more than likely have Erica to thank for such words. The vision for a community splash pad in the greater Oregon area was set forth by the Oregon Brooklyn Optimist Club back in 2016. The Optimists envisioned the splash pad as a vibrant and accessible recreational space that would offer a safe and engaging environment for children and families to cool off and play during the warm months. It will feature a variety of water elements, including sprayers, geysers, and dumping buckets, designed to provide endless entertainment and sensory stimulation. The project also is focused on incorporating accessible design features, ensuring that children of all abilities can enjoy the facility. For more than a decade, the Brooklyn, Oregon, or Oregon Brooklyn Optimist Club championed the cause of bringing a splash pad to the community. The Optimists organized countless events, from bake sales and car washes to larger scale charity auctions and community festivals. Their commitment extended beyond fundraising, as they also dedicated significant time to researching various splash pad designs, engaging with local governments, and fostering community support for the initiative. The Optimists engaged the Oregon School District to assist in making this dream a reality by being the fiscal agent for the project and donating the land next to the pool for the splash pad location. As you heard from my colleagues in the Optimist Club, we've had almost 500 individual donations, totaling almost $600,000, an average of over $1,000 per donation. Those come from $3 donations to $50,000 donations. And then, of course, the $321,000 from the DNR. I'm very proud of our club. I'm very proud of the school district. I know it has been a long time coming. I know it took a long time, but I think we are finally there. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Amanda Peterson.
Hello, my name is Amanda Peterson, and I live at 301 South Main Street. And I'm not here to talk about the splash pad, although I support the project. I'm being the odd man out here. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm here as a resident of the Village of Oregon, a parent of an OHS student who just graduated, and as an employee and representative of the League of Women Voters of Wisconsin to speak in support of item C5 on the agenda. Many of you know that the League of Women Voters of Wisconsin is a nonpartisan political organization that works to empower voters and defend democracy. We believe in principles of good governance, including transparency and accountability. The League supports similar efforts around school funding transparency in other school districts and municipalities. Taxpayers have the right to know where their tax dollars are being spent and to hold their government representatives accountable for their decisions. The amount of money I pay to the Oregon School District is on my tax bill. However, a portion of that money actually follows a number of students to voucher and independent charter schools, where taxpayers lose oversight of that money. There is no school board or oversight agency to monitor how funds are spent or measure educational outcomes in the same way there is for public schools. At voucher and independent charter schools, there's no one to complain to or vote out of office if you are unsatisfied. How can we expect citizens to be educated about school funding, vote on school referenda, and hold government representatives accountable when they have incomplete information? These hidden sub-slices of the public school funding pie should be on every property tax bill in Wisconsin. The League and I urge you to support this tax transparency project. Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda. Susie LeBrun.
I live at 933 Highway MM in Oregon. I've been in this district for 35 years with Tim. I'd like to encourage the board to make the Oregon Splash Pad happen. Our school district enrollment goes up and down, and our funding follows the exact same path. It is in our best interest to draw new families in to replace those students graduating out. What draws people in? Yes, an awesome school district, but everyone already knows that. There are lots of great schools in Dane County that we're competing with. It's more about a sense of community and a feeling of, this is where I want to raise my kids. A splash pad sends a strong message that we love and care about our kids here, we value our youth, and we want to nurture their community and their education right from a very young age. Drawing in families early will keep our student pipeline full and our long-term funding more secure. The Optimist Club has been raising funds. You heard a lot about that already. I just want to recognize Margaret Straub and the rest of the Optimists for all their hard work. Numerous donors gave generously specifically to support their energy and the vision of an Oregon Splash Pad. I'm appealing to the board to dedicate yourselves to finalizing the vision and make the Oregon Splash Pad a reality. This is a legacy you will look back on with pride. I'm not putting it all back on you either. I'd like to ask how I can help as a community member, a grandma, an enthusiastic supporter, a problem solver, and an engineer. I'd be happy to help in any way. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Susie. Are there any other members of the group that would like to speak for public comment? All right, that concludes our public comments section. OEA report. Is there anyone here from the OEA? I don't see anyone tonight. All right, we'll move right along. So that brings us to our action items. Start out with C1, 2026-2027 food service prices. And I'll turn this over to Mr. Wyland.
Good evening. You may recall back in May, we actually brought an agenda item to you, and Mandy's going to come to the table so we can both answer questions if you have any. What we tried to do is capture your questions at that meeting and include them as answers onto the agenda item, is in addition to the information that we already provided you, but also with some updated information. The one piece of information that's probably most updated, most relevant, that we feel fairly confident with now. We don't have our audit done completely, but we're 13 days past the fiscal year ending, is that we did lose a little bit more money than we anticipated in the food service fund, about $20,000 more than we had projected at the time. We still do have a fund balance, but it's down to around $60-some thousand. So we really need to have some type of corrective action to get the food service pricing at a level which kind of supports the expenditures. The good news is we did actually, I was looking at this today, serve around 2,000 more meals than the prior year. So we did have some growth in the amount of, and that's from lunches specifically. We did have some growth in participation, or at least in more sales, but it wasn't enough to kind of get us where we needed to kind of be at a place where we weren't using more fund balance to kind of get through the year. As a reminder with food service, and this is why it's kind of in our best interest to get this fund to a point where it's as close to self-sustaining as possible. If that fund doesn't have any fund balance left, then basically it automatically requires a transfer from Fund 10. So we want to get that to a point where it can get closer to self-sustaining, because otherwise Fund 10 has to help sustain it by law. So I guess I'll just open it up for questions for both Mandy and myself related to the food service fund. I did put one slide together just kind of showing this. Fiscal year ended deficit was around 65,000. If we anticipate some additional food costs next year, and I wish I had a crystal ball on this, depends on what's going geopolitically and how prices for fuel and everything else are going, but we threw $27,000 as an estimate out there, and then salary and benefit increases of about $35,000. We have about $127,000 amount that we have to come up with, and if you see the $263,000 we actually sold last year. That was from the 24-25. I think we actually sold around 265,000 meals this last year, which comes out to just around 119,000, or right around $119,000. So a little bit higher than what's shown on there at the 45 cents. So there still is a little gap, but definitely something that we think maybe with some of the innovative things that Mandy's and the staff are doing, that we can close that gap with a little bit more increased participation. It's just that it's not going to completely close that gap without some type of a price increase. So our recommended pricing is down below, and we're looking at a 45-cent increase, which is actually 5 cents more than what we were asking for in May. But because the gap got a little bit bigger, we felt like we had to increase that as well. Mandy, what did I forget?
We did go back.
Hello?
I think it's on, right? Okay. We did go back in the last 10 years as to see the food prices. And in those 10 years, we haven't even increased it $1. So that says a lot. So this is the time where we do need to start increasing it.
The other thing that I'll share is I have talked to some of my colleagues, and increases of this nature are not are more common this year. I believe Sun Prairie's doing 25 cents. I think McFarland's doing 45 cents. Monona Grove, I think, as well, is doing something of that nature, and maybe even Verona is going up quite a bit. I think I read an article on that earlier this year. So these types of increases in the past historically would not happen, but I think there are things in the environment right now, lack of support from the federal government, as well as just some increasing costs related to food prices and those types of things that we're all seeing in the grocery store, that have actually kind of created this issue for us. What questions do you have for Mandy or I? Yeah.
We'll start with Leslie and then Mary next.
First of all, thank you both Andy and Mandy for all of this extra work that you did, that we requested you to like come out with some more information for us. I know that this is a job in itself, and I really appreciate that you guys did this for our understanding. I wanted to, first of all, for Andy, can you tell me, you were talking about community prices, you know, across different districts. Where will this put us? Like, if you're going on the assumption that everybody's kind of jumping up, will we still be at that median price, or where will we be?
We're a little bit on the higher side, honestly. Part of this, at least in the past, we've kind of attributed this to, we do have a fairly low free and reduced lunch population.
Right.
The free and reduced lunch population that do participate actually are very advantageous to us. The federal funding is actually a little bit more than we get from our parents ourselves from paid perspective. It hasn't been increasing, but it's more significant than what we actually charge people. So districts that have a higher free and reduced lunch population participation actually have that kind of as a nice thing, so that that allows them to keep their prices a little bit lower for everybody else. The one exception to that is, and we've talked about this before, is Wanakee. Wanakee's actually, their high school is not even in the food service program, and they charge $5, which is more than what we're suggesting here for, we're at $4.25. They're charging $5 for everybody in the high school because that way they can do whatever they want to do. They're not part of the lunch program. We have certain limitations as to what kind of food, what we can serve, what we can't serve. They don't have to do that.
Great. And then, so I appreciate also that you guys, when you looked at breaking this down as to how this would look across the schools, across lunches and breakfast, that you did not raise breakfast based on that is our a deficiency, I guess, if you're going to look at it that way, that we don't have as many people participating.
Correct, and we want people to participate.
Perfect. And so with that, this is kind of leading into my next question. How do you have thoughts on how to create more interest in that?
Well, what we are going to start doing at the high school this year is we piloted last year at the end of the year, and so we're going to go forward with it this year, is to do a second chance breakfast. And that is going to be between second and third hour, where students can come to the cafeteria and they can get a second or a full breakfast.
I love seconds.
Or if they want a second, they get a second. But this encourages more people to come to us and get breakfast. And if it does do well, I did talk to the Heidi at the middle school, and if it does do well, maybe we can even try it there.
Perfect. And then you have a lovely list of things on our purple about other things that you've been thinking about. Things like sports meals, vending machines, take and bake. Can you tell me about any of the others that you're really excited about maybe trying?
The vending machine, we did talk a little about it last meeting. The seniors, or the wellness committee right now, we have a wellness committee at the high school who's really pushing for a vending machine to see that as we're hoping to get it in no later than December this year, but it will have smart snacks items in there, so that'll also increase our revenue, because we will be stocking it, and it will be available after school hours, during school hours. So that is something that they're excited for, and I'm excited for. And then sports meals, I know we have dabbled in it. I've talked to Brittany a little bit about that, and it's more of me reaching out to the parents and seeing if this is something that we can do, because I know there is a lot of groups that go to Subway and get a meal. Can they come here and us make kind of the same thing? Because if it is part of an after-school program, we don't have to keep with the same nutrition standards, so we can maybe use a little different of a bread or something to more entice the students who want to come and get a meal, and for us instead of Subway. So those are all little things that we've been thinking of. It will cost money to implement and see how much labor would be to produce that. Definitely because a lot of the kitchen staff leaves by 1:32, and this would be something after school. So it's finding the place, can we make them, and then do we have somewhere to store them for that group to come pick up on their way to the bus?
That sounds wonderful. Thank you guys for all of the work you guys are doing on this. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I totally understand the need to, keep a balance and not want to dip into Fund 10 because obviously we are underfunded. We all know this. We're underfunded in so many different categories, and we do need Fund 10 for, for backfilling other areas as well. The 45 cents just seems painfully high to me. And so, Andy, I know you threw out a couple of, Sun Prairie, 25 cents. McFarland is somewhere in the 45 cents.
I believe so. Monona Grove is the one, it depended at the level, but I think the high school level, I want to say, it was the elementary level, was in that 45 cents range, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it makes me wonder, with an increase in cost of this magnitude, how much that will decrease. It will impact, our students from taking lunch, right?
Yeah, I have definitely struggled with that myself. I will tell you this, that kind of convinced me or helped me get there a little bit more, and it's nowhere near the magnitude of 45 cents, but when we did 15 cents, we actually sold more meals. So I was like, okay, maybe we're not as price sensitive as I was thinking, but the 45 cents is more. It is a risk. I don't have a better answer of how to close the gap, unfortunately.
Yeah.
We've kind of been brainstorming this the entire year. So if we do see a reduction in participation, then I think, we're going to have to maybe rethink it a little bit and see if there's something else that we should have done differently. But I don't have a great answer right now other than this, unfortunately.
Can you remind me, though, it seems to me that, and I don't, maybe I fabricated this in my mind, but once we go up, we can't come back down? Is that correct?
I believe that is correct. Yeah, Mandy's shaking her head. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
So maybe you would hold the pricing at that point for a number of years or something rather than having increases. That would be a solution to some degree, that hopefully the people's sensitivity would actually lessen over time. But I wished I had a better solution. If people felt more comfortable with 40, I would be fine with 40. It's just that we need something fairly significant.
Right. What does 40 net us?
I could do quick math.
105,000. Did you have any other questions, Mary? No. Okay. We'll go to Nathan.
Yeah, Mandy, I always appreciate hearing your updates on your great program that you run. There's a lot of complexities and a lot of moving pieces and parts, and I think you do a great job. So thank you for that, and to Andy for bringing all the good numbers to us. Back when you were here in May, I stopped back home to my number one stakeholder, my high school now senior, now graduated, right? Sorry about the microphone, folks. And I know a number of years ago, he started packing his own lunch. And I said, hey, we got this lunch topic. I said, how come we don't take your school lunch anymore? And he goes, they're just not big enough. He goes, I need more food. I said, okay. So that was his idea. And I'm sure across all the great things you do, I wonder if there's ways in your, your future ideas and goals list. And I hope you don't mind me sharing that in the sense of just, other things to try as to of solution-oriented thinking here, but something where like you can sell a double lunch to somebody. I know you have your limits on what you can do for helping sizes, but I think, it just, if you could double up or, move that to like a $6 meal, but you get a double helping or something along those lines, you've probably done that. This is probably a silly idea, but I just thought I would give some feedback and some thoughts to help create another source of revenue for the program and meet a need, at least from an individual one. So thanks for that. He's a dual sport athlete, so he's always burned calories. So thank you.
I was going to say, we have had that discussion again. So we are working on that. The other thing I'll say is, help me, Mandy, it is all you can eat vegetables and fruits.
It is all you can eat those vegetables.
Well, there
and
you
fruits.
go.
That's
You didn't
the
tell me
hard part.
that.
Getting, they can fill their trays with that.
We used to have a young man who ate so many carrots that he actually turned orange.
Oh.
Love a guy who loves something that's free.
You only got half of the equation there, Nathan. Yeah. Other comments, questions from the board members? Dr. Bush.
So
I'm with Mary. I don't like the 45 cents. It's a big jump. But here's the thing. I've been on the board 3 years, and every year we've done 10 cents, 15 cents. And every year we've said, well, this doesn't close the gap, but it gets us closer. And maybe we can figure something out. And it's been several years now, and we haven't closed the gap. And if anything, right, like you said, the gap actually grew this year more than we thought it would. So in the face of that, right, I mean, I kind of wish we'd been a bit bolder in the last 3 years and done maybe 25 cents instead of 15. And maybe we could have closed it so that we're not looking at this 45-cent jump this coming year, because it is a lot. It's kind of painful. I'm open to doing it, but my concern is, and I guess this is the question I have for both of you. I don't know if it's a question you can answer. When you look at the donations we got this time around, and you look at the donations we get many times we have meetings, we have a lot of families who donate money for outstanding food service balances. Do we have any idea about the origin of the outstanding food service balances? And the reason I'm asking this is that I'm fearful of a jump like this. There will be plenty of families that can pay a 45-cent increase, no question. There will be some families that it might be a struggle to pay a 45-cent increase, and they might be that from that portion of families in our country and our community that are just on the cusp of maybe qualifying for reduced lunch, but they don't. And so they can't get any, assistance in that regard. And a 45-cent increase could be enough where all of a sudden they're looking at not being able to buy a school lunch. And so I guess the question is, do we have any sense of how many families, and the reason why we have outstanding food balances, how many families struggle with paying their food service balances, and the impact that an increase like this might have on those families? Because my concern is that we're going to see more families struggling. Not a lot, but more.
Mandy, you have any thoughts on that? I have a couple, but.
I mean, I do feel that we could see some of the families will not be able to pay for it. I do try to contact every single family who has a negative balance. I mean, there's a lot of people that don't respond to my emails, to my phone calls, so I don't know their situations. The families that do respond to me, we do try to use donation funds or try to help them in a certain direction. But that's a very valid concern.
The one thing that I'll share is, and all it does is move the needle a little, move the bar, so to speak, is we do have a program that if people will don't qualify, actually the Oregon Food Pantry helps pay a portion of those folks so that they do get a free meal. So now again, the number goes up a little bit, right? Then you have the group right above that. So we do everything we can in our community to make sure that people have meals, and we don't turn anybody down. So and that, to some degree, that also is one of the reasons why we have negatives, is because people might not be able to figure out how to do it, but we're going to feed their kid.
All right, board members, you have a suggested motion in front of you.
I guess just so we can move things along, I'll move that we approve the 45-cent increase for lunch prices as shown in the document that was provided. Which document is this? C1, in document C1.
All right, we have a motion by Dr. Bush and a second by Mr. Hensel to approve the 45-cent increase for lunch prices as shown in the packet. Is there any discussion? I guess I'll weigh in here. One of you all talked about how, I think it was you, Dr. Bush, how for many years we've been making these very marginal increases, and we still have not been able to break even on our food service. And I've been feeling that maybe a little longer than you, Dr. Bush. I think now is a time to true it up and get us closer to breaking even. That has been a goal that we had actually this time last year. We had a lengthy discussion around really doing, making the initiative to try to get this fund to be closer to breaking even. So I will be supporting this. Any other discussion? All right, Gina, please call the roll.
Yes.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. We have new food prices. Thanks for joining us, Mandy. And thanks, Andy. All right, C2, we have the 2026-2027 academic standards. And Dr. Tanner, I imagine you're joining us for this.
Yes, thank you. This is actually a state requirement, so this is relatively pro forma. But each year, boards are required to publish and approve the at the first board meeting of the new fiscal year, the curriculum standards, academic standards for each school district. So we typically, to communicate these, we publish them on our website, so they are available to everyone there. The ones we are required to include are math, science, reading and writing, geography, and history. And we actually include a lot more than that. We try to be fairly comprehensive, but that's just something that we do to make it fairly apparent to people. For the most part, we mirror the Wisconsin academic standards. In some areas, we use national standards like Next Gen Science Standards, or the SHAPE Physical Education Standards, or the Learning for Justice Social Emotional Learning Standards. So these are published. This is usually not anything that has great debate about, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about them.
All right, any questions for Dr. Tanner? We'll start with you, Leslie.
I just wanted to find out what, if anything, have there been in changes, major changes from this year to last year?
Yeah, no major changes. Last year we had science was one of the things, K-12 science was one of the big ones, and we started through that process last year, and it's we're doing a thorough job. And so we're focusing a lot right now on the 6 through 12 science standards. We didn't really change a lot of the standards for K-5, but we did work with the university, a PhD in curriculum studies from the university, and with some of our a consultant from CISA 2 and the science consultant from DPI to look at the actual curriculum that we're teaching and to better align our next generation science standards, embed those with our K-5 science curriculum to make it more phenomenon-based and more hands-on. And so that wasn't really a change to standards, but it was a way to strengthen them. And so that was the biggest change that we did last year. And then we are piloting science curriculum in grade 6 this upcoming year in the fall. And we're also doing some realignment and changing of the high school science, mostly the order, but a part of that is also reviewing the curriculum standards that are there from DPI and from the next generation science standards. So you can expect next year at this time to hear that we've made some changes to the secondary science standards.
Perfect, thank you.
Other questions? All right, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the 2026-2027 academic standards.
Motion by Dr. Lukuda. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Wright. Any discussion? Gina, please call the roll.
Dr. Lukuda? Yes. Ms. Wright?
Yes.
Dr. Bush?
Yes.
Mr. Hensel?
Yes.
Mr. Pankratz?
Yes, motion carries 5-0. We have new academic standards. Thank you, Dr. Tanner. And we are operating without Katie Heights tonight, so appreciate Gina and others stepping in. A very valuable member of this operation is Miss Katie Heights. So, next up, we have C number 3, which is our Policy 770 Student Staff Communication. This is coming to us from the Policy Committee. Ms. Garrison is not here to present that, but Gina has graciously offered to present this to the board.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pankratz. So this motion is coming from Policy Committee, and we are looking for the board to approve it tonight. So the motion does not need a second. This policy we've been working on this for a little while, but then a state law passed that required school districts to have a policy for staff-student communications by September 1. So that's why we would be looking for approval tonight if possible. I want to really emphasize 2 things. One is that the policy committee discussed this and they felt that this policy should apply to board members. So this policy, if approved tonight, would apply to you as well. And also, I really want to stress that this applies when employees are acting within their official capacity. And that will be a really important point should the policy pass, and we will start with employee and volunteer training. So there are many employees like myself that are also parents. And so really when staff are thinking about this policy and we're considering the policy, it's when they're acting as an employee and not as a parent. And so you'll see why that can be a little bit confusing as you read through the policy. But essentially, just to give you a really high level, broad view of the policy, and then I'm happy to answer questions. The policy applies to board members, employees, and volunteers, which is a requirement under state law. It has to apply to communication with students, and that means verbal communication, written communication, communication over social media, and communication that's done in any written format, email, chat, text, etc. It also has to apply to and educate staff about what grooming is. So the policy definition has the same definition of grooming as in state law. So that is where that definition came from. And so what the policy says is that employees, volunteers, board members must engage in communication that is professional with students and is done through appropriate communication methods. And that is something that'll be a change for us in our district. That the approved communication message means would be the district email or Google Chat account. An approved communication platform, we are in the process of moving to Parent Square, and I really want to thank Erica Mundinger, Katie Heights, and Julie Fisher for working on that. That will be a website or an app if people like, where staff can text with students or parents or family members, and the district will retain that as a record, and it will not be from employees' personal phones. So that is a way for us to reinforce boundaries with students through an application to be able to retain those records as required by FERPA and the Public Records Law. And then also employees would not have to be using their personal cell phones. So that'll be a big lift for us as a district, and we'll start training staff on that in August. The athletic department has piloted that in spring, and that's going very, very well. So that'll be an important move. And then you'll see here there's things that employees and volunteers and board members should not do, and that will be not texting students on their personal phone in their official capacity. We're also asking to reinforce boundaries that employees, volunteers, and board members not friend students on social media platforms or whatever the terminology would be. I'm older, I use Facebook, friending, but whatever that term would be on Instagram or Snapchat or whatever the next application is, in their official capacity, because that's just can be confusing. And many staff members say they like that as a policy because then they're not put in an uncomfortable position. They can just say no for that. And then we just reinforce the reporting requirements in the policy, that if there's any conduct that violates the policy or is inappropriate, or if people have to report it as a mandatory reporter, that they do so, and that they also involve our Title IX coordinators to assist with that, so that we make sure that students and families understand their rights under the law. And then the policy or the law also requires that we talk about consequences of the policy. So you'll see that in there, which were our typical consequences for policy violations. And then we also are committed to training employees annually about the policy. So with that, I will pause for questions.
Board members, what questions do you have? Nathan and then Leslie.
Yeah, thanks, Gina, and thanks to the policy committee. In your review and build up for this policy, did you guys have engagement and review by members of the OEA just for their kind of litmus test of the wording and whatnot in here?
We've talked about it informally. We've talked about it informally when we were meeting about, there's a PMT committee that we go over issues about. But in terms of the direct language, I don't remember if an OEA member was present or not for the policy meetings. We talked about it over 2 meetings, and I believe an OEA rep was present for at least 1 meeting.
Very good, thank you.
It's a great question.
Gina, one of the things that I wanted to find out is, and this is maybe a technical question, if I would like to add something to this, do I need a friendly amendment?
You can certainly offer it as a friendly amendment, and as soon as you talked, I also would mention Ms. Wright recommended that we link the Title IX policy in the document, and I thought that was a great idea. So I did agree to that, and then I forgot to mention it.
So that was my friendly amendment, so that's really all I have.
So we will link, because anytime we can link to policies and make them easy to find, it is welcome.
There is actually one other thing. One of the ways that you really helped me to wrap my brain around this while we were listening to the policy committee was that when you gave your example about your daughter and her friend, because it was really kind of confusing initially trying to piece through this, and that was helpful. So like understand that maybe your kid's friend is over at your house, but you're an employee, and then you're not acting as an employee at that point. If you need to contact by cell phone for your kid's friend or something, because you're acting as a parent, that kind of thing, that's different, and that doesn't apply to this.
Yeah, so hypothetically, let's say you're a parent of a child who does not have a cell phone and their friend's child has a cell phone, and you're at the park and they want to go to a different area to not be by mom, that you may text the friend and say, it's 6 o'clock, I need you to come back now. I'm texting now as friend and mom, right? Not as my capacity as an employee. So that would be fine. But if I was texting someone like, you're not at school today, you didn't call in. I don't know why I would do that with a student, but let's say that's in my official capacity, right? Like, why aren't you in school today? I'm worried about you. That would be done over Parent Square. So I think it'll just take a lot of training and examples for employees to be able to understand it, not trying to take away anyone's capacity to communicate with their children when they're a parent or a family member, just in their official capacity. So thank you.
Gina, I've been trying to come up with any scenario in which a board member would need Parent Square. I mean, and I have not come up with any. Is there something I'm overlooking?
I would say, that a public record depends on the content of the communication, not the format. So if you are emailing on your school email to your child to say, make sure you get milk on the way home, that wouldn't necessarily be a public record. That's your personal business. It's just on school email. Now, if you were texting Dr. Bush, will you be at the board meeting tonight because I want you to talk about policy 770? Even though that's a personal text, that is about board business. So that would be a public record. So one thing we've talked about is if board members want to text one another about board business, I strongly caution about that because we don't want to violate open meetings law. But there may be times where we do need to text, like, are you coming to the board meeting? We want to make sure we have a quorum. Or can you please look at the doodle poll because we have an expulsion hearing that we need to get scheduled right away, hypothetically. And so, you know, those are things about, I don't mean to be looking at you, Dr. Bush. That is government business, right? And so that may be something where you say, I don't want that to be on my personal phone because then it's up to you to retain that for 7 years. I want to use Parent Square so that the district now retains that. So that may be an example where you want to use Parent Square for board business when there are times we do need to text when we need attention right away.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, Mary, I was wrestling with that question myself, and I couldn't come up with anything other. The only stretch would be like communicating with our student rep for some reason if we were communicating on a topic they were presenting about, but I think that's a kind of a stretch. Other questions? Dr. Bush?
In the 770.02 section, the definitions, you said that the definition of grooming is taken directly from state law. Are all of those definitions from state law? That might be.
No, it would be the first sentence is from the criminal code. So grooming is a course of conduct, etc. And then the examples are from DPI training and the WASB model policy.
All right. Okay. All right. So we don't need a motion, correct, Gina? This is coming from policy, so we can go right to the vote.
Correct.
Okay. So Gina, go ahead and call the roll, please.
Dr. Bush.
Yes.
Mr. Hensel.
Yes.
Dr. Lakuta.
Yes.
Ms. Wright. Yes. Mr. Pankratz.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. We have an approved policy 770. Thank you, board members. C5 is our board resolution to, oh no, I'm jumping ahead. C4, 2025-2026 budget adjustments. Mr. Weiland.
Thank you. So each year about this time, we look at how the budget performed from the prior year. The main impetus for this is really an audit comment that we will get if we exceed a functional area within the budget. So the original budget, we do obviously the best job projecting where we are going to spend the funds, but sometimes those funds are spent in different functions than we anticipate. So this kind of realigns that. That's one situation. The other situation that can happen is just on the other side of this wall. We did have a leak this year that ruined a portion of our gym floor, and that was a $190,000 insurance claim. We obviously got those funds. We haven't gotten all of them, but we got a portion of them this year, and we also had the expense associated with making the floor look nice and shiny again. So sometimes our budget grows. Grants are estimated at the time of budget adoption. That does change as well. So things can move the budget as well. We don't change the impact of whatever the budget is from the original perspective. So if I click the next button, which I should have done at the beginning, you can see that the budget deficit, and again, I want to be clear on this, that's from one-time expenses. That's not a reoccurring budgeted deficit. That's just from one-time reoccurring budgets, carryover amounts. Did not change from the original to the revised. So we're not actually spending additional money that we weren't anticipating on spending, other than if it came from a new source like an insurance claim. So the idea here is to just kind of realign everything a little bit. It's kind of a useful process for the business office to do it at the end of the year because we're getting ready for the audit anyhow, and we kind of want to know how things are playing out, as well as moving money within the functional areas or between the functional areas so that we don't exceed any area that intentionally. Sometimes, even though we're doing this at the beginning of July, sometimes there's still bills coming in, believe it or not, that we might miss one and we might still get a footnote. So I can't promise we won't get a footnote, but definitely this is a better situation where it's aligned more closer to than where we probably will be in the end. This is a practice that many school districts throughout the state do, and it is allowed, believe it or not, all the way through July of the year of the month after the budget close. So with that said, I will point out one thing, just because it is a point of conversation within this board, is I did include here, you know, we had our state special education aid was significantly different than what we had anticipated it would be. Even though we didn't believe that the state's estimate was accurate, we backed that off a couple percent. It was actually more, it was even less than what we had anticipated. We've talked about that several times, and the agenda item talks about that being about $120,000. I knew that that was going to happen fairly quickly, and we also knew that our interest revenue would almost compensate for that. What I didn't know is that there was a high cost aid estimate that was also off by almost $100,000. So I don't know if you read that in the agenda item. So that some sufficient, some certain thing bit us twice in the special education area this last year. Luckily, Medicaid came in a little bit higher. Medicaid's a very hard thing for us to estimate. But it will also not be as big as a player in the future because of some things that are happening at the federal level. But this is kind of the last year where we got a little bit more money than we were anticipating. So we have realigned the Medicaid budget for 26-27. So we won't be anticipating that as much, but it did help kind of compensate for the high cost aid loss that we had. So lots of different things kind of happening with the budget. I would say right now, we're not in the audit yet, but we do anticipate a small increase in Fund 10 fund balance, even with all these changes, just because of some things that went our way, even though other things went against us. So with that said, I'll entertain any questions you may have.
Who would like to start? Leslie, go ahead.
Andy, when we talk about special education categorical aid, that's what we're typically talking about. Can you remind me, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, that special education high cost aid is when you have a student that goes over a certain dollar amount. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So, and that hit us pretty significantly this year.
Yeah. We had anticipated that the state told us it was going to be at 50%. I'm looking for the number. We budgeted 38 because we never believed the state completely, but it came in at 31.
Okay.
So that cost us about
just shy of 100.
Yeah, just shy of 100,000.
Okay. And then are we adjusting our thoughts on it for next year then?
Yes, we have.
Okay. I kind of assumed you had, but
yeah,
you have to ask. Okay, again, if the state would back us on special education funding, that would be lovely. Please call your legislators.
I will piggyback on the special education thing. I think it's especially important because the state leaders really made a big deal about the 50% number for the high cost aid. They made a really big deal about it. It was the biggest blah, 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 blah. And it turned out to be 31%. It's just really discouraging. And it continues to cost school districts like ours and every school district in the state a significant amount of funding that could be spent in other areas of high need. Special education, we have to pay for it, but it just continues to be a source of struggle. So I'm just piggybacking on that. The thing that I wanted to ask Mr. Weiland is if you could explain, because when you say budget deficit, it sounds really bad. And I think it's worth just kind of maybe explaining again how that works, that we're not actually running a deficit budget. It would be a budget deficit only if we did every one-time project we have on the books and we spent all of that money in 1 year, which we wouldn't do.
Right.
But I think it'd be worth maybe just explaining that again so that anyone listening, and also for the record, we all understand that idea.
That's a very important part, Dr. Bush. So when we have funds left over in certain areas within our budget, because we didn't spend them by June 30th, basically we're allowed to carry them over, but in order to spend them the next year, you have to budget for them. So it's part of fund balance. It goes into fund balance on June 30th, but if you want to spend it after June 30th, you have to basically budget it, and then that's a budget deficit. Which sounds horrible, but it's a one-time budget deficit. It's not a reoccurring budget deficit that would mean that we have a problem that we can't stay within the means that we have available. So all it is basically moving an expense that didn't happen the prior year and moving it to the next year so that we can spend it. We do have a couple allocations that we don't always anticipate spending, but our practice over the last several years is to carry those things over year to year in case there is a need within the 1 year to spend it. So I will say that this is half of what it was before. I'll also tell you that some of those carryovers were influenced by COVID area grants from the federal government that we weren't able to spend quite when they wanted us to. So we kind of moved some things around so that we had that money and then could invest them in long-term projects within the district. So we've got it down quite a bit. It's still elevated from where it was, I'd say, 10 years ago, but we're starting to narrow that gap in a strategic, planned way.
All right, if there's no other questions, I would entertain a motion.
I'll turn on.
I will move to approve.
I'll second.
All right, a motion by Nathan, second by Dr. Lakuda. Is there any further discussion on this topic? Just noting this is really closing out many meetings of conversation about the 25-26 budget. So, Gina, please call the roll.
Mr. Hensel.
Yes.
Dr. Lakuda.
Yes.
Dr. Bush.
Yes.
Ms. Wright.
Yes.
Mr. Pankratz.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Wyland. All right, C5, this is the board resolution to educate taxpayers about the amount used to fund private and charter schools on the tax bill. And who is kicking this one off? Mr. Wyland, I think. I see your name here.
It came from Visioning Committee, so this was an unusual one for us.
Yes.
So I'm happy to talk about it. I did put the agenda item together, and I did actually help to craft the resolution with the help of Cara Newton from our finance department, just to make it Oregon-ish, so that the numbers were obviously made sense to our district. So that's the extent of our involvement. I think the Visioning Committee might want to talk a little bit about the reason for it.
Yeah, we did have a hearty discussion on this topic in a very positive way at our last meeting. I think, Mary, you were so kind to really bring that topic and all of the supporting material behind it to light at Visioning. Would you be so kind to bring the group up to speed on the same here today?
I certainly can, yeah. So the first one in the state, the first school district was Green Bay to push this forward to essentially get, as we were talking about earlier in this meeting, to show what, maybe we weren't talking about it earlier in this meeting, I'm not sure, but to show what funds come into Oregon School District, but then flow right through and to fund charter schools and independent schools that have no need for responsiveness to the community, no need of responsiveness to the taxpayers. They don't need to follow the state statutes, special ed. And so The concept really is starting to take place in across the state, where it's really important for the taxpayers to be able to see what their money is going to, whether it's going to the public school or whether it's simply flowing through and going to other non-responsive schools through the. But what that means for us is we have, and Andy, I'm going to blank on the actual number of municipalities. Is it like 12?
I believe it's 10.
10?
But we have one that's separated between two counties, so. There's
11.
11 to some degree.
So 11 municipalities. So the first step in this process is for the Oregon School District Board of Education to review and potentially approve a resolution indicating that we feel that transparency in the tax bill is an important thing. That then would go to each of those 11 municipalities. The municipalities would have to vote to approve, and they don't all have to vote to approve, but any that do then need to take it to a governmental office to then get it on the tax bill. So the hope is that some of the municipalities can actually vote on this still this summer and get it onto this year's tax bill. Anything I forgot, Nathan?
No, I think you covered it.
Okay.
Thank you. Since this came from visioning, then
Yeah, we don't need a motion. We can go right to a vote. So, yeah, any further discussion on this topic? Leslie?
I just want to say that I fully support this. I think it's an excellent idea so that our community and our taxpayers can understand where their tax dollars are going and what is actually staying here in the public schools that they support and what is just going out to charter schools and private schools that aren't required to be held to the same standards that we are. They aren't required to pay for their special education and provide those same services that we are required to provide. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice apparently. And I'm just really appreciative that people have taken the initiative to do this, and I hope that it goes through.
Andy, do you have a rough number of what that dollar amount is that's exiting our school district budget and going to charter and voucher schools?
Yeah, you know, the Green Bay example's a very, very large number. We're not as large as them, nor do we have the amount of students that do this or parents that do this. But our number is just shy of $500,000. What's more alarming from my perspective is just the growth in that number over the last several years. From 2022-23 to 2025-26, so over 3 years. I believe it grew 368%, is what's in the resolution. So that's alarming, right? Like, we don't have expenses that grow that quickly. So now it doesn't hurt the school district in that it takes money away from what we can do, but it does hurt the taxpayers because we're raising that money and we're just a flow through to these private entities.
Dr. Bush?
Am I on? I'm on. I remember we looked at this number in a budget meeting sometime earlier this year, and it was kind of graphed out for us. And I remember, and I would guess this is my follow-up question to what you were just saying about the total dollar amount and the growth, the percentage growth, that when you graphed it out, it literally is almost like an exponential line, right? It's an exponential increase, which you don't see in revenue in any sense.
No, it is very close to exponential in that regard.
it's like hockey stick, right?
Yeah. All right. If there's no further questions or discussion, we'll call the roll. Gina?
Mr. Hensel?
Yes.
Dr. Bush?
Yes.
Dr. Lakuta? Yes. Ms. Wright?
Yes.
Mr. Pankratz?
Yes, motion carries 5-0. We have an approved resolution. All right, could I have the clicker? I think I'm kicking off the next item. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move into action item C6. This is the consideration of the use of remaining 25-26 community ed funds to explore value engineering of the splash pad. So this is coming to us from Visioning, so we don't need, well, we'll see. I'm not going to jump the gun here, but this is coming to us from Visioning. And you have a purple in front of you. I'm going to just kind of walk through this for you. I've been involved in this kind of heavily for the past couple of months in trying to get this project across the finish line. So I think you all remember, or maybe not all of you, some of you remember a few weeks ago I visited with our Village of Oregon board, and was trying to help us attain another partner to help us finally get this project across the finish line. So some of what I'm going to share here was presented to the village board, and I'm recycling it now. But what we're showing on the screen is a concept of the proposed splash pad. You're all pretty familiar with that. Little history, you heard about this from some of our public comment speakers this evening. This project's been around for around 10 years. I just want to highlight the board, the school board's role in this. So back in 2016, this was before any of our time on the board. The prior board had approved an amount up to $150,000 to support the splash pad, and that was the intent of that was to construct the pool restrooms. And we fulfilled that commitment, and you can see the rest of the timeline here. We've gotten to 2026, the bidding process. One item I do want to clarify, because I've heard some misinformation about this in the community, is that we have not bid this multiple times. We only bid this project one time this year. So the dollar values that I think people are maybe getting misconstrued out there, it was the engineer's estimate. So the design and the engineers came up with a dollar figure of what they thought this splash pad project would cost. This happens to be my area of expertise, so I am very familiar with doing an engineer's estimate and then putting it out to bid. And oftentimes those bids come in much higher than what we expected. We don't have any control over that. The beauty of a competitive bidding process is that you put a project out to bid, and it's a blind process, and your hope is that you get multiple bidders that are very competitive, and the low bid wins, right? But we have no control over what those prices are going to be. But I just want to make it very clear to the community that we have only bid this one time. We were operating under an engineer's estimate. The project bid came in well above that estimate, and that has put us in this predicament of where we are today. So financial status, on the left side of the screen, you can see our contribution of the school district. We have exceeded our original commitment of $150,000, and we've doubled that. We were at $300,000. Those were things like as was said, the restroom construction exceeded that cost, the cost of our staff time to bid the project and run through serving as the fiscal agent, and there have been some various other costs that the district has contributed along the way. Optimus funding and plus the grant, we're looking at nearly $900,000 there. That puts our total funding at about $1.2 million. Our costs to date, we've spent about $629,000. Some of that's for the equipment, the property, the bidding process, things like that. And then, as I just mentioned, the construction bid came in at $783,000. you can, do the math here. The total project cost is going to be 1.4 million, which leaves a funding gap of 217,000. So that's where we're at today. I mentioned I did go to the village board to look for a partner. There was no interest there in partnering on this project. So we don't have support from our local community, which, again, leaves us where we are today. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Andy because Andy is the expert on Fund 80.
Okay. So Fund 80 is a kind of combination of three different things in our district. One is the pool operations. The other component is kind of the things that you see mailed to you maybe once or twice a year, which has all of our different program offerings in it related to school or even adult educational programs. So that could be, a chess club or something like that that's going on, or Lego Logo, or those types of things that are going on in our community. And then the last thing is really our Performing Arts Center, and that being used as a community resource. And there's a component to the pool operations that are there as well that are related, that we actually charge a person that is around in our district on the weekends that helps kind of the community interact with our facilities. So this last year, we had not had that particular person in place all year. We kind of mix and matched a little bit to try to get through without having that person. So we saved some funds there. We also had a very active or supportive community education programming. We actually made more money than we actually spent in some areas of that area, and that happened at the pool as well. And we had a position in community ed that we, because of some transition things that were happening in there, that didn't get filled. So the result of all that is that we actually had some leftover funds in community ed, and we anticipate that to be over $200,000 for the end of this year. So we can see that we're going to probably bridge that gap pretty well. We also feel like there are some savings in the design that we can value engineer a little bit of a situation out of it. So even though the bid is a little bit longer or a little bit further from where we're at today, we think that with those things as well as the community education funds, we can hopefully bridge that. Community education funds can't be used for anything related to the educational program. So I put in the agenda item, sometimes the DPI will kind of throw a test out there, and the test is basically, if you stopped doing whatever you're doing from a programming perspective for community ed, you can't then replace it with another funding source that's related to Fund 10 or Fund 27, which is our educational components. They have to be completely separate. You'd have to stop doing those activities or find an outside funding source that would pay for them. So that's kind of the DPI test as to how things would work. So something as integrated as, we're going to provide transportation services for something like that. It can't be related to our educational program at all. The splash pad, when we've talked to the Department of Public Instruction as well as our auditors, and we've looked at the test as well, fits that very well. So the splash pad, if all of a sudden we stopped operating it, nothing would change with our educational program. It is separate from that. So it meets that criteria, and since we have the money, it's already levied, it's already in the bank, it would not even have an impact on next year's community education programming. It would just go back into the fund balance the following year. So did I answer all the questions?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, appreciate that, Andy. So board members, what's in front of you tonight, as was mentioned, this is coming from the Visioning Committee, and the actual resolution at the Visioning Committee was to utilize the remaining 25-26 community ed funds to complete the recirculating splash pad and to make the necessary design adjustments to stay within the total funds allocated. So that's the motion that's coming to you. Now, you're all certainly free to vote on that motion or to amend that motion, but that's what's coming. Andy, the dollar amount that's left in Fund 80 this year was 200.
Right now, we're looking, again, this is pre-audit, right? So, but we're right in the 220 range is what I see
Okay.
on the agenda item. So
So
we're right,
kinda
pretty
right
much
at-
there.
right at the gap.
Again, it's almost 6 months later than what the bid was, so we're gonna have to look at that. But hopefully with some things that we can do within the design, we can get to a point where we can make this happen.
Yeah, so just again, recapping, the previous board 10 years ago voted for $150,000 contribution. It's up to this board to make a decision on the gap and whether or not you all want to take that community ed fund and push it towards the splash pad project. So what questions do you have? Leslie and then Dr. Bush.
Andy, can we talk about like upkeep and things like that and funding for that? I know we looked at dollars, and when we were trying to come up with solutions before we knew that we had this amount of money in the Fund 80.
Yeah.
And at the time, we were looking like at a non-recirculating and seeing, and then the water amounts came into that, and so, but knowing that that's not part of it, we were talking about 25,000 a year.
Yeah, and I would say I think both those numbers are a little bit high, simply because we're not going to add staff. We are actually allocating hours and for staff that probably are working for us already. So as far as additional costs, it's probably not going to actually cost the $4,000. But yes, that is the number that we came up with when we allocated dollar amounts to the amount of time that would have to happen.
So then what I was curious about is like, is Fund 80 then something that will be used
Yes.
for the upkeep as
Yes.
well?
Yes. Now, again, that meets the standard, right? Like if we didn't use those funds for that purpose, then would anything change with the educational program? And the answer is no. It's not used for the educational program. It's used completely separate.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Dr. Bush, I'm just going to jump in before you. One thing I didn't clarify or remind everyone of, you all probably remember we went through a couple different iterations of adjusting the design in order to save some cost. When we got that first bid that was below our available funds, we went back to the engineers and the designers and said, what can we do to reduce this cost? We went through a couple iterations. One of those iterations was a flow through a different water supply system. We considered that, but really where we are today is we're back to that very original design of a recirculating water flow, which minimizes the amount of water usage that we would be needing to use from the community water source, and that it's a costlier upfront construction cost, but I think the thinking is that it better aligns with our sustainability efforts here in the district. So
And it cuts the operational cost almost in half, I believe. So
yeah. Dr. Bush, we'll go to you.
Mr. Weiland, can you remind me, the budget stuff I'm always kind of lost about the budget stuff. The Fund 80 balance, is that a balance that carries over from year to year? And if so, are we basically taking that balance down to zero?
yeah, so the community ed is kind of an interesting animal. In the past, the way we've interpreted the community ed balance is it would be used entirely to reduce the levy for the following year. Now that doesn't sound like, in talking to DPI, and there's some things happening there. As we've been talking to DPI, they've actually said, we've been running this out of Fund 21, and since we've talked to them, they've like, maybe this is more of a Fund 80 entirely thing, so maybe it should have all been in 81. And then I said to them, well, how can that be? Because then I would have to reduce the levy by the donations that the Optimist gave me, which that wouldn't be good because the money would go. And they're like, no, you can put those aside and actually reserve those in fund balance for Fund 80. So that might be a change that we have this next year, is that it would actually, all of it would be stay in Fund 80. So we actually have a call tomorrow with the EPI and the auditors to figure out, actually just with the auditors to figure out what our path forward is on that. So it might in the future have a fund balance, but in the past we've used that fund balance to reduce the levy for the following year. So we would just not be doing that this year. We would be using that to fund the splash pad, which, to be honest, is not a bad thing to happen this year, because we do look to have a little bit more state aid this year than we did last year. So the levies will be impacted in a positive way by that for this next year. So that's a good thing.
And then I guess a follow-up is, if we do use the money in this way, and the Fund 80 balance gets drawn down to nothing, to zero, that balance will when the levy monies are collected, that balance will then go back up, right?
Yep. The levy, this is going to sound strange to people, but we have limits on everything we do and all of our funds except Fund 80. Fund 80 we can raise to what we feel the need is, and so that can go to whatever level that we need it to go to.
Yeah, just really appreciate all the great information and detail here. As I look at the value engineering topic and then the 220 and the 217, as you're going through the value engineering exercise, I'm assuming you're going to build in a contingency so that as things come, I mean, I assumed, but I just felt appropriate to ask, since we're kind of talking some razor thin margins there.
We want to feel confident that this is going to happen, and we need to have that contingency there so that things are comfortable. We'll feel a little bit more comfortable coming out of the ground, as I put in the agenda item. For those of you that don't know what that means, is the ground hides all kinds of issues, and you want to make sure that you have stable ground to build on, because once you get out of the ground, then you don't have as many potential contingency things that might bite you. So
I appreciate that. Good due diligence on contingency, and appreciate all the good due diligence checks with DPI and our auditors. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. So I know, and thank you, Troy, for talking about the recirculating versus the flow through, but as well, I think, to Nathan's point, the question of value engineering and making sure that this can actually happen, right? Is it possible that would need to be revisited, recirculating versus flow through?
No, I think at this point we feel pretty confident that we're going to be recirculating. We're going to be looking at things like how the retaining wall is done, the ramp that's there, the quality of the fence. We had kind of like a wrought iron type thing. We feel we can go to more of a rubber coated chain link fence, that type of thing, just to make sure that we're doing everything we can to get to the project completed at this time.
Okay. And then, we're talking about the entire total is 220. That's very close to what the original projected cost was, or the deficit. Yeah, yep. Right. And you had mentioned that Fund 80 also covers the PAC.
Yep.
And so what sorts of things would the PAC not be getting?
Yeah, so the PAC we have to be a little bit more comfortable or careful with. We actually do time studies, and it's a portion of Mr. Mendel's salary that's covered. And the idea again is, if there were something that Mr. Mendel's doing for the community that would stop, then Mr. Mendel's contract would become smaller, or we'd have to find a different revenue source associated with that. So that's a little bit different. It's not as clear cut, and there are operations within the pool that are like that too. When the community's running that, then the costs associated with the lifeguards and the other staff that are there are charged to Fund 80. If, again, those things stopped, then the same type of thing would have to happen, as those people's contracts would have to be reduced. So a little bit different in that regard. It's mostly just time related to Mr. Mendel and interacting with the community, with the facilities, as compared to something, because the something in the PAC is going to be used by the educational community as well, and so we can't make that argument. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
So anything we do from new lights or new whatever that go into the PAC, it really has to come from Fund 10 because our kids are going to enjoy those improvements.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, well, I haven't heard any suggestions for amendments. So if there's no further discussion, I think we're at the point where we would vote on this motion coming from visioning. So Gina, we're ready for calling the roll.
Okay. Mr. Hensel? Yes. Dr. Lakuta?
Yes.
Ms. Wright?
Yes.
Dr. Bush?
Yes.
Mr. Pankratz?
Yes, motion carries 5-0. We have a splash pad. All right, we're going to move on to section D, our discussion items, committee reports. Let's start with visioning. Nathan, anything new on visioning?
So my microphone now chooses to work. Okay, very good. Our last meeting was largely filled with splash pad conversation and preparation for tonight. So thank you to all who participated in getting that in a good spot for tonight. And then our next meeting is going to be next week on 7/21 at 6:30 p.m. The primary focus for that meeting is going to be with Dr. Tanner around the district's continued endeavor into AI guardrails, guidelines, and safe use of. So really looking forward to that for sure. But after that, that's all I had for tonight.
Okay, great. Thanks for that report. Policy committee, Ms. Garrison's not here. 5:30 on the 21st, I imagine? Yep.
Yes, that is correct. And we will be talking about the cell phone policy specifically for the middle school and also the employee handbook for next year.
Great. Okay, E, the floor is coming over to you, Dr. Anderson, for our informational items, starting with vision and strategic planning.
I'm actually going to jump right to the superintendent's report. And so first off, one thing that we often get asked is what happens at OSD in the summer? What's going on? And there is a lot of work for service and support of students, never stops. And that looks different in a lot of different ways. It's a time for growth and reflection. Our staff is engaging in a lot of professional development, strategic planning to sharpen their skills and ensure an excellent start to the school year. Our staff are actually working with our students as well. That might be through travel, it might be through coaching, through running our summer semester program that you're going to hear more about in a minute. But they are really committed to continuing to think of opportunities for our students to learn and grow. A special shout out to our staff for continuing to engage in our core values of caring and professional educators during every season year long. Summer semester started last week. We have a fantastic, very robust summer program, and it's been exciting for some of our new staff to have an opportunity to see what that looks like. We got the numbers. We have 1,429 students enrolled. That is up from last year where we had 1,163 students partaking in our program. There are 82 different classes offered, and there is truly something for everyone, from reading to art, music to athletic classes and more. And there are some new classes this year, including embroidery, art in nature, around the world in 10 days, debate, and more. One of the things I have really appreciated about our summer semester program are our high school interns. These are some photos from the first day. You can see they are all wearing matching shirts by design. So it was very easy to identify them. And the photo on the upper left is all of the students at the main entrance ready to greet students and help them find their classes the first day. I was there the first couple days as students were coming in, and it was awesome to see how our high school students were taking the younger students under their wing and helping them to class. I know we have a few interns who are also interested in pursuing a field in education, so it was a great opportunity for them to get some experience helping guide our youngest learners. And then we always have to do, the optimists are very excited in the hallway. Also want to remind everyone to listen to our Inside the OSD podcast. The most recent episode, the last episode of season 4, was called Passing the Mic, and I had the opportunity to do that podcast with Dr. Bergstrom during her last week. We spent some time reflecting on the transition, her time as superintendent, and such an honor to take the mic from her. Season 5 will be coming soon, so stay tuned. We're beginning to plan, and we'll be continuing that tradition because there is so many wonderful things to highlight from our district, and so I look forward to showcasing that. That is all I have.
Well done. Great job, Dr. Anderson. And yeah, I really enjoyed the podcast of Passing the Mic. Check it out. And I didn't get a chance to comment on this last month, but I think it was the previous podcast on the robotics team. You all have to listen to it. It was amazing. Really, really, really great. Really great work that's happening in our high school with the robotics team. So, all right, future agenda. We are back here in August, so we don't have a second meeting in July, but we'll be back here we're getting back on our regular cycle in August of second and fourth Mondays. I will not be here for either of those meetings due to some work commitments, but Dr. Lakuta will take over this seat. So I don't have the agenda items for those meetings set yet, but I'll work through those with Dr. Anderson over the next couple of weeks. Which brings us to checkout. Anything for checkout? Nathan? Mary?
All good here, thank you.
No, I'm good, thank you.
Dr. Bush? Nothing from Leslie and nothing from me. So, all right, that takes us to consideration of adjourning to closed session. So, let's see, consideration of adjourning to closed session on item G1 and G2 is provided under Wisconsin statutes 19.851E and 19.851C. Do I have such motion? Oh,
I'll make that motion.
yep. I have to read the two topics. Okay, I wasn't sure. So the two agenda items are discussions regarding negotiating the SRO agreement for the 26-27 school year pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.851E, and to consider the performance evaluation regarding district administrator pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.851C. Do I have such motion? All right, motion by Dr. Lakuta. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Hensel. Let's do a roll call. Gina?
Dr. Lakuta?
Yes.
Mr. Hensel?
Yes.
Dr. Bush?
Yes.
Ms. Wright?
Yes.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. We are now in closed session. Let's take a 5-minute recess and we will meet in the small conference room next door.